Good evening, and if you're just tuning in and you're listening or watching live, welcome to UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network. You can listen to us on 105.3 FM out of Mississippi and 107.7 out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana, if I could talk tonight. And that's where we are actually broadcasting from. Oh, we're having fun tonight. Hang on, guys. I'm producing the show and dealing with things are not going where they're supposed to, but we'll see. We're not on Roku yet, but I'll talk about that in a sec. This is the Angel Rock. If you've never been here before, welcome. We're glad to have you join us. And if you've been here before, you know this show and my second show that I co-host on Thursday nights here on UPRN with my very good friend, very gifted medium, David Hansel, is The Thing at the Foot of the Bed at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. A little bit about myself. I am Lorilei Potvin. I'm a Canadian psychic medium, crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor. I'm an RN. I'm an animal communicator, working on it. Julie Jean Bassett, my mentor, I don't know, she usually pops in here. She told me I can't say budding anymore, but I'm working on it. I'm also extremely well versed in the topic we're going to be talking about tonight, near-death experiences, having studied them professionally and personally for over 40 years, and I've had one as a toddler. I'm also extremely well versed in the paranormal. I always say we didn't go looking for the paranormal, it found us. We have shared our story on the Travel Channel's Paranormal Survivor, season 4, episode 9, called Demonic Hauntings. Boy, oh boy, that Roku just wants to let me know that it's not working. It just keeps hiding all of you guys here. So if you see me get distracted, that's why. Now, a little bit about the network. It's been around for 25 plus years. We do broadcast to every country in the world, believe it or not. And we do broadcast several live shows 7 days a week. And while we're not broadcasting live, the archive server dips into the last 25 plus years and pulls up some great content randomly. So we are live 24 hours a day. You can find us on various platforms, such as the stations I mentioned. We're also on YouTube. Also, there is something for everybody. I believe we're almost up to 40 live hosts on the network, and we're always looking for new and great shows with great content. It's not all just paranormal. So if you like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe. For example, and I'm going to give her a shout out because I finally got to meet her this weekend. Don't forget to check out Carrie Lynn Shellhorn on Fridays with Spirit Switchboard here at 6 p.m. We had a big paranormal a conference. I'm telling you, my computer has just decided it's going to pop everything up it possibly can. Anyways, we got to meet in person. We are great friends. We've always connected over the internet, and she and I both spoke at the conference. We met some great people, had great fun. We've got some pictures up on Facebook. You can check those out if you like, but I want to give a shout out to Lucky Paranormal. They put it all together, and we had a great time, and it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of people there, and people from my city, people from out of the city, lots of great hosts. A lot of them are on TV, so be sure to check it out. I'm going to try and have some of those people on the Angel Rock in the future, so look forward to that. I want to make sure I didn't forget anything. Yes, let's talk about Roku that keeps distracting. Oh, now it's streaming. Now, because I call it out. It kept flashing these big screens right in front of me. So you can watch us on TV. The network does have a TV channel on Roku. And how you can find us, you're going to go to the channel store and type in UFO space P is in paranormal, and there's a drop-down list where about the third or fourth one down, you're looking for UFO space paranormal and United Public Radio. Also, this show and The Thing at the Foot of the Bed, we're very audience participative here. So I always tell my guests I have the best audience. You guys are so kind to one another, to people that are new that pop in. You ask great questions, great comments. And how you can do that, because if you're listening to us, you're probably thinking, well, how do I comment? So how you do that is you're going to look for something you can see on video, and how you'll find that is on UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio on Facebook and YouTube. I'm streaming to my YouTube channel, which is the Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin. I believe I'm streaming also to my Facebook profile, which is public, so you don't have to be a friend on the list, on my list, to join in the conversation. We're streaming on Canada's Most Haunted. We're also streaming to the Angel Rock on Instagram. Please don't think we're ignoring you over there. They don't send the comments over to where everybody else is here. So if I will try and pop back and forth to say hello to you. Easiest and fastest way for us to see you, though, is to head over to YouTube. Like I said, either UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio or the Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin, because sometimes Instagram kicks out after an hour, and we'd love to have you join in the entire show. I know I'm missing something. I'm missing something. I don't know what it is. I guess we'll figure out what it is. It'll come up as I'm talking, I'm sure. So before I introduce our guest who has been on the show, this is his third time on here, and you guys have absolutely loved him. Roku just does not want to play nice tonight, I'm telling you. Anyways, I'm going to say hi to, well, I'll say hi after. I'll read his bio and then I'll say hello. So this is Douglas C. Hodgson. Now, the cool part about Douglas is, I know him from Gavin Davies, who works with the publishing company over in Wales, and he sends me the best guests. But we just get to chat via email. And 3 minutes before the first time he came on, he's over in Australia and has been for over 40 years, but he has dual citizenship with Canada. And he let me know, I've told so many people this story, Douglas. Before he came on, he checked out my links, which I'm glad he did. And lo and behold, and Thunder Bay is not a big city in Thunder Bay or in Canada. It's in Ontario. Okay, we have about 100,000 people. Douglas was born and raised and grew up in Thunder Bay for the first 30 years of his life before he went to Australia, right, Douglas?
That's right, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
The universe works in strange ways, doesn't
I
it?
met a relative of my first husband, the only time I've been married, but my first husband, who was probably at our wedding, quite serendipitously. It was not, I didn't recognize him. I was looking for Carrie Lynn Friday night at the conference. I walk in over to her, and these people mentioned that, well, you'll know where it is, Red Lake. They were in from Red Lake, which is a little tiny northern community. We get talking, and as I'm talking, we realize that my ex-in-laws, who are no longer Earthside, were her aunt and uncle. So we sent my ex-husband, I'm on good terms with him. We sent him a picture of the two of us. He got a good laugh out of that. Okay, it was, like I said, it's a small world. Oh, we don't even have glasses here. I just love when things disappear. Okay, I'm going to do my best here without glasses. I'm going to read your bio. It's quite illustrious here. So Douglas Hodgson is a former dean and professor of law, currently residing in Perth, Western Australia, and it's now spring over there, he told me. It's getting into fall over here. He undertook postgraduate legal study at the University of London before embarking on a 35-year career in higher education in Canada, Australia, and New Zealand as a teacher, researcher, scholar, human rights advocate, and university administrator. His areas of expertise include public international law, international humanitarian law, civil law, causation law, and human rights law. He has published extensively in the field of children's human rights. That's right up my field of interest, all of those topics. One of many, but definitely interested in that. Professor Hodgson has authored and published 30 peer-reviewed law journal articles and 4 books. It's probably, is it 4 now or is it 5 or more with the new one?
Well, I've lost count. I think I'm up to 7 now.
I thought it was more than that. Yeah. He is a regular attendee and alumnus of the Oxford Roundtable, where he delivered addresses on the concept of an international rule of law, the protection of children's international human rights, and the challenges of religious fundamentalism. I can't even say that tonight. My mouth's not working. Sorry, hang on. Now lost my phone. You know what? I think my phone thinks it knows better than me. I joke that it's possessed because it always does crazy stuff like that. in the public school system from a human rights perspective. As a complement to his work on religious discrimination issues in the educational field, he developed a passion for studying and comparing the scriptures of the world's faiths. And my eyes are, and therefore, distill therefrom, it says common and unifying the spiritual principles upon which these great and diverse religions are based. He lives in Perth, Western Australia, and we're going to be talking about his brand new book. Hang on, I'm going to find the title. It's called Near Death Experiences and Sacred Scripture. So, welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Laura, for having me back on the Angel Rock.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to be with you and your audience once again.
Well, let's say hi to the audience before we get started. So we got Tom Baker. He says, we'll listen and stay quiet, or at least try. That's okay. We'd love to have comments and questions. We have Z Sun Dragon, or Kevin. He's a fellow Canadian. He says hi. Leslie 1266 says hi to everybody. We got Kathy Henley Little. Let's see. We got Contessa Martins, or Connie. Let's say everybody's saying hi to everybody. That's why I said everybody's so kind to one another. I love this. Julie Evans on Facebook, but Julie Evans on YouTube. And I want to give her a shout out because it's late over there. It's 6 a.m. You told me over in Australia. So thank you for getting
now it's 6:23 a.m. The
6:23.
sun's beginning to rise, Laura.
Well, it's actually, I believe it's almost 11:30 over in the UK. So thank you for joining us so late. Heidi Gull, she says, hello, beautiful souls. Much love from Boulder. Thank you for joining us. Let's see if I don't want to miss. We got Ken Stockla. He was originally from Thunder Bay. He's now in Southern Ontario, I believe. I went to high school with his sister and him. Michelle Wilfong. Let's see. Oh, Heidi Gall says, my phone is the same. She says, sometimes I live in the East Coast and have never been there. Definitely a love-hate relationship with Uncle Google. Definitely. So I know when you were on here the last time, you were writing this book, weren't you?
Yes, I was, Laura. It's been released now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was released in August, at the end of August.
I saw it on Instagram, or not Instagram, sorry, Amazon. I'm doing too many things at once, and I don't drink. I didn't drink on the weekend, but the thing is, I am exhausted. Like, for me to go to bed at 10:30 at night, like last night, I don't go to bed till usually 3 or 4 in the morning. So I'm still getting caught up here.
Okay.
So, no, I was clicking on it because what's your website? Can we tell people that? Because I know you have one, and do you think I could find it?
Actually, I don't have a personal website, Laura. Maybe I should, but I don't.
Okay,
but
then
if any of your audience would like to contact me about anything I say on the program or any material in my books, they're most welcome to. They can contact me on my personal email address, dchodson53@gmail.com.
Okay,
I don't get many
change
emails,
that.
but they're quite welcome to contact me if they so wish.
You know what I'll do? I'll change that, because what I instead did was I posted a link to Amazon where people can buy your books because they were all listed there. I thought, because I knew there was something that I didn't have for you, because normally, like, I promote the show on every single platform and I tag people in it. And I couldn't find you. There was lots of Douglas Hodgsons, but there was not you.
That's the reason.
So let's refresh people's memories a little bit about this, because you've been writing on the subject of near-death experiences. But as I remember, you yourself haven't had one, but you've been quite interested in it. For people new here, why did you get interested in the topic of near-death experiences?
Well, I've written a trilogy of spirituality books over the past 2 years, Laura. The first one was Transcendental Spirituality, Wisdom, and Virtue. The second one is Spiritual Revelations from Beyond the Veil, What Humanity Can Learn from the Near-Death Experience, and my current book that I'm speaking to your audience about tonight. But I've always been fascinated with the human mystery and the world of spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was raised in a Christian church. My parents took me to St. Michael's Church on Red River Road. You would
Oh,
be familiar
wow.
with that church. And
I'm
as I,
laughing because people are thinking, okay, great. And I'm laughing because for you to bring it up, and it has never astounded me more.
uh,
I've never had a guest in all the years I have been doing this that has shocked me in a good, happy way that you did that
okay,
first time I met you in person over video. Okay. In Thunder Bay. Okay. You
yeah,
went.
I was baptized there 70 years ago,
Mhm,
and I remain a Christian, but as
mhm,
I grew older, I became a so-called
mhm.
non-exclusivist Christian, in the
Okay.
sense that I believe that all religions are pathways to God. So
Absolutely.
I became interested when I retired at the end of 2017. I became interested in reading the sacred scriptures of other world religions. And in the next year, I did that. And when I read through the sacred scriptures, I realized that they're based really on common and unifying ethical exhortations and universal ethical principles. So much so that I was struck, this needs to be disclosed in some way. So I wrote a book called Transcendental Spirituality, Wisdom, and Virtue, and it
Mhm.
contains 36 divine virtues or universal ethical principles.
Okay.
And the thesis I postulated in that book, which was published 2 years ago, is that if we incorporate these divine virtues into our daily lives, we will become better persons, better souls, and we will elevate and expand our consciousness. Having finished that project and having published that book, I then went back to study the so-called phenomenon of near-death experiences. Because about 30 years ago, I read Dr. Raymond Moody's book, Life After Life.
Mhm.
And what I read there totally captured my imagination and my fascination. But being a busy university academic, I didn't really have that much time at that point in my life to study the NDE. But
Mhm.
once I retired, I had a lot of spare time to do this. So
Mhm.
I took a deep dive into the NDE. I looked at the archives of the International Association for
Yeah.
Near-Death Studies and
Science.
poured through some 500 anonymous written accounts. Some of them were quite brief, others were very lengthy,
Mhm.
but I tried to distill from those 500 accounts that I read the common themes, messages, insights, and observations.
Okay.
And I was able to collate all of that material into chapter headings. And I
Yeah.
ultimately produced my second book of this 3-book trilogy called Spiritual Revelations from Beyond the Veil: What Humanity Can Learn from a Near-Death Experience.
Mhm.
But that book was written from a completely non-religious perspective
Right.
because many of the NDE written accounts were written by atheists or agnostics. So having completed the second book, I then started reviewing what I had written. And the more I read my first 2 books, which I've just mentioned, the more I realized that there's a parallel messaging between what the NDEers report
Mhm.
and what can be found in the sacred scriptures of religion.
Can I
Now,
ask
I'm
you
not,
just for a sec,
oh, yeah,
just for one
sure,
sec?
sure,
Okay, for people that don't know the difference between, say, the Bible versus sacred scriptures, could you kind of point out what you mean by sacred scriptures, just so people know what we're talking about here?
sure.
Thanks.
What I mean by sacred scripture is the Bible,
Okay.
or for Christians, the New Testament.
That's why I
Uh,
asked, because some people might think
yes,
you were getting into the sacred sea scrolls or the Torah or so you went from the Bible then looking at the sacred.
Well, I actually looked at Judaism as well,
Okay.
the Old Testament.
Mhm.
In my latest book, I've looked at Judeo-Christian apocalyptic literature, the Book of
Ooh,
Enoch.
okay. Hmm.
I looked at Islam, the Quran. I
Hmm.
looked at Persian religions, the ancient Zoroastrian religion,
Oh, I don't know
and
much about
also
that
the
one.
more modern Baha'i religion.
Okay.
But I didn't stop with Western religion. I actually looked at Eastern religions and metaphysical belief systems,
Oh, interesting.
particularly from India. I looked at Hinduism going back some 5,000 years, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, and I even looked at Chinese religion, Confucianism, and Taoism.
Okay.
And the more I looked at these sacred scriptures and the NDE written accounts, the more I realized that they're basically saying the same thing. So,
Yeah.
what they are saying is a profound cross validation of each other. So, whether you look at the sacred scripture or whether you look at NDE accounts, they're basically validating each other, corroborating the truth. These universal ethical principles or ethical exhortations that we should live our life by. Having said that, I firmly believe that what we can learn from the near death experience and its consequent messaging goes far beyond what is contained in sacred scripture. So I've always been fascinated by the human mystery in the world of spirit.
Okay.
Life's most profound questions. What happens when we die? Does our consciousness or awareness simply dissipate into an empty void of nothingness? Or is our consciousness exclusively dependent on
Mhm.
a beating heart and a functioning brain? Or is it transcendental in nature? Does our consciousness exist before our earthly incarnation
Okay.
and after our departure from this earthly realm? What is the meaning of life? Do each of us come here with a unique mission? What is our meaning and purpose here?
Hmm.
Um, are there universal laws which govern the operation of the cosmos, making sense of everything? Um, when we finish our earthly life, are we judged by God on a reward punishment basis,
Oh,
as
I want to
some
go there.
scripture would have us believe?
Hmm.
Or is it otherwise? And is humanity alone in the cosmos? Or are there countless realms and dimensions of existence, both seen and unseen, some being of vast complexity, and some of which may interact with the earthly realm? These are all questions that have fascinated and captured my attention and imagination for decades, but they have all been answered by the near death experience messaging. And
Hmm.
that's what I find extremely exciting. Also, the cross validatory nature of what I read in sacred scripture and the NDE messaging.
Okay, so that was a great answer because I think that the majority of humanity, not everybody, but the majority, has asked at least one of those, questions that you just shared with yourself that you say have been answered through the NDE experience. But one that you mentioned, and actually, Gavin, I don't usually use this questions, but sometimes I do. He said, "Are we judged by God on a reward punishment basis, or do we self reflect and self realize on our earthly life with the assistance of beings of light in a process which is facilitative rather than condemnatory in nature?" So, what was your findings from because you've done a fair amount of research, but I would love to hear this because I think this is the age old we've heard this. If you've grown up in a religious background, I'm not condemning religion in any way, shape, or form. I agree with you that religion, all roads lead back to where we come from. I call it home, and a higher being, which I myself call source or God. Other people may have another name for it. But when there's a lot of religious dogma, and depending on what we follow, there's a lot of fear-based persecution with it. So I'd love to hear what you discovered. Are we punished, or is it the latter of the two I just mentioned?
Well, that's a fantastic question, Laura. I'm happy to answer it. While you were talking, one of the NDE observations came to mind,
Okay.
and he or she said in their written account, religious zealotry is not of God.
It's not right.
Religion tends to instill fear in
Yep.
people,
Mm-hmm.
fear of judgment and condemnation.
Mm-hmm.
But God is not about fear. God is absolute, unconditional love,
Absolutely.
passion, and forgiveness. So, according to the NDEers, and I can't speak from personal experience, I'm a simple and humble man who is searching for the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But what the NDEers have told me in their messaging is that by definition, God cannot judge or condemn because God is love. God and the beings of light, call them spirit guides or guardian angels, with overwhelming love, they lead us, each of us, through a so-called life review. And it happens almost instantaneously. I don't know how it's done, but virtually every thought that you've thought in your life, every word
Mm-hmm.
spoken, every deed and omission is reviewed, undistorted by the light of God. And there is no condemnation, no punishment. It is
Mm-hmm.
simply shown to you. Some describe it as a panoramic 3D holographic movie in which you observe your own life. You are the star of your own life. But you don't simply observe your life that you've just lived from your own viewpoint. That's part of it. But you observe it also from the standpoint of an objective, unrelated third party observer who happened to be there, but not a direct participant in the proceedings. That's the second dimension of the review. The third dimension, according to the NDEers, is you review your life through the eyes and feelings and emotions of the people you affected.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are very kind and compassionate to others, then you get to feel during your life review the joy and happiness experienced by the people you made feel good. And in turn, you get to see how they, in turn, spread the love and joy you gave to them, how they spread it in turn to others. It's a
So the
ripple.
ripple effect, I was just thinking that the ripple effect, right, of what your actions. Mm-hmm.
And it spreads out into eternity, into the vastness of the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you are cruel or unkind to others, if you harm them in any way, you feel the hurt, the pain, the sadness, and the suffering you wrought to them by the way you behaved. And we can do that to people through words, actions, but also by inaction or omission. So we not only experience what our victims felt, but we are shown how they in turn spread the unkindness, the pain and suffering that we gave them to others, and how they in turn spread it through the universe or the cosmos. It's a bit like karma. What we send into the universe is ultimately returned to us. in kind, whether we like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So this is for the edification or evolution of the soul consciousness. It
Absolutely.
is done in a spirit or atmosphere of unconditional love. It is, as you say quite rightly, an exercise in self-realization or evolution or expansion of our soul or our consciousness. It's a method of enlightenment. The Hindus refer to enlightenment in India as self-realization, as moving towards the light, towards God or Brahman or the source or the creator. But we have to reincarnate countless times because it takes many, many incarnations for us to learn all of the lessons and to get those lessons right. We are all on the same pathway leading to God, but we're all at different levels of evolution of our soul consciousness. But we're all going for the same thing, and that is self-realization or enlightenment. Eventually, union or communion with the light. Eventually, we will become love and light itself, but that takes eons to achieve.
But
Unless,
there's
of course,
no time. There's no time on the other side. And something I have so many questions I could ask. I'm going to read two comments here, though. We got
okay,
Kathy Henley Little says, we are not judged by God or source. We judge ourselves and we are not punished. I agree with that. And Kevin, or Z Sun Dragon, says, life review might begin while we are alive. If a spirit guide is coming to us with such love, which they do, could this be a paragraph towards a life review whilst still alive? I think that's a good question. What do you think, Douglas?
well, I totally agree, Laura. In fact, I think it was in my second book, Spiritual Revelations from Beyond the Veil. I made that very point in the chapter on the life review. Why wait until you cross over?
Yeah.
Assess your life now. Take a stock take. You can look at my first book, Transcendental Spirituality, Wisdom, and Virtue, and do a stock take of how you're doing so far in the earthly realm. Do you practice these positive energies in your life? Or do you draw too much on the so-called negative energies?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do, how can you embrace the positive energy in a fuller and more meaningful way? And how can you mitigate indulging in the negative energies? Because that will pull you away from the light. It will pull you away from your mission in life. You might not even know what that mission is if you indulge too deeply in the negative energy. So that's a wonderful comment, which I totally agree with. Why wait until we cross over? Start doing it now. And each of us has a guardian angel and spirit guide that can assist us in that.
Many.
And read sacred scripture. Read the NDE accounts on the website and the archives of the International Association for Near-Death Studies. The NDEers are much more articulate than I am. They can say it much better. And what they say, in my view, is profound and penetrative eternal truths. We can learn so much from them.
Well, Heidi also added, I have a few things to add to that too. So she says, in the physical, everyone is a reflection of themselves. Everything is connected as above, so below. And I agree with you. I love to just watch a channel from IANS because people share their personal accounts. And I like to be always multitasking. So I'm listening and doing something else. I wish I had the time to read as much as I love to read. But the way I was just describing this to, I don't know if I think it was with one of my clients, and it was either that or it was a group. I can't remember what it was recently, but I was saying it's almost like, you know, we're a radio station, and the frequency that we're putting out, like we're trying to, when you're trying to tune into the radio frequency, right? Or if you're trying to tune in a radio station, for example, but the frequency we're putting out is sort of what connects to everything else in the universe. So where I was going with that is, I was trying to explain, I used to hate this term years ago. I understand it now very well, and I don't hate it. Well, I didn't hate it, I disliked it. Is you have to raise your vibration. And what that means is, right, is your everything being energy. If you're vibrating at a higher level of energy, or some of the things you've just been talking about, that is what you will draw to yourself, right? If you're vibrating at a lower frequency, these are the experiences and the things that we will tune into and draw to ourselves. And it kind of goes along with what Heidi, I think, was saying. I'm just going to say hi to a few people here. We got Julie Jean Bassett. I was talking about you earlier, Julie. Welcome. You guys check her out. Amazing animal communicator. She's helped me many times, as well as a shamanic practitioner. She's fantastic healer. I just want to go through and see. So I have some questions about this then. And again, I always tell people, none of us know all the answers. We're not going to know them completely until we go back home. But that many people can't be wrong, right? Even with the amount of research that you've done. But for example, this weekend when I was at this paranormal conference here locally, and it's not my job to judge, but I was very surprised running into a lot of people that claim to work with demons, and strictly demons, and lower negative entities. So I would love to know, because to me, the term demon, I myself had an experience with something very negative. And I always say you can label it whatever you want. It's what started our paranormal experience, but also about the fact of hell. And it's not often, but I have run into people, as well as in my own studies, of people who have had hell-like experiences. So what are your thoughts on that, Douglas? Like, what people label a demon or hell or lower vibrational type experiences and entities of that nature, even with an
Well,
entity?
here, Laura, I can speak from personal experience
Okay,
because I've had experience with demons
you have
going
to.
back
Okay.
since 1983,
Mhm.
40 years ago.
And I only bring it up because we're in
Yes.
spooky month too, so we got to throw some spooky in there.
But people aren't interested in my experiences, I'm sure.
I am.
But
I'm sure everybody is.
what I can say is this. If you look at Hindu scripture, at the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the
Mhm.
Song of God, it is one of the most profound, in my view, and moving Hindu scriptures. It refers in Canto or chapter 16 to the divine virtues and the demonic qualities. Now, interestingly, in my research of the NDE account, what the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, would call evil, or what the Hindu scriptures would call demonic qualities, that is called in the NDE written
Mhm.
accounts negative energies. For example, anger, aggression, fear,
Mhm.
greed, hatred, violence, finding fault with other people. If we indulge ourselves too much in these negative energies, there will be consequences for our soul. I mean, we are given free will by God
Mhm.
to create our own reality. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, our thoughts create our reality, our life. And he's correct. But if we indulge too deeply in the negative energies or the demonic qualities, that will take us away from God or the Creator or Source or the light. That will impede the evolution of our soul consciousness. And according to Hinduism, in the Bhagavad Gita, which I was just reading yesterday in preparation for another seminar,
Okay.
that will affect our future reincarnations. We will
Okay.
evolve into a baser or a lower state. And according to the Hindus, reincarnation as a human is a great privilege. It doesn't happen very often. And if we draw too much on demonic qualities and negative energies, we run the risk of reincarnating in another life form, not as a human being. So there are significant risks from what I've read. But I acknowledge from my personal experience and from what I've read in sacred scripture and the NDE accounts that there is such a thing as evil and demons and
Mhm.
dark energy. And when I wrote my second book on spiritual revelations from beyond the veil, I
Mhm.
was focusing on the light, on the positive. But I did come across numerous, what I would call dark energy experiences that the NDEers claim to have had when they were out
Yeah.
of their body.
Mhm.
They're very real and
Oh yeah.
tangible.
Mhm.
Yes.
I have a theory on it. And again, I don't know all the answers, but coming from my own nursing background, and there's one story that I watched, I don't think it was through IONS, that was particularly quite profound. But this gentleman was a private in the military, and I guess there were a couple guys that were a couple levels above him. And he was, they were left back at base. Everybody had gone home. They'd spent all their money. So they were hanging out at the base, just exploring around the base. Everybody was gone. And the way he described it, they came upon this garage, I guess, kind of thing that was there, and they were all sitting around chit-chatting. One of the guys, I guess, had a ton of Snickers bars, he said, and the other one of them was begging him for at least one, and he wouldn't give him one, and that becomes significant in a second. Anyways, they came upon this noose hanging down, and there was four. So one was begging for Snickers, one had Snickers, one was the private, and the other one had a camera and was taking a lot of pictures, and he had one picture left. And somebody had the great idea and said, why don't one of us pose like we're being hung? And the other people will all stand around and we'll look like we're doing it. And it'll make a really interesting picture. So, of course, the private got chosen to do this. And what had happened was he didn't realize that it was supposed to be a big joke. So he put the noose around his neck, and the two guys were pulling on either side of the noose, I guess, and the other guy was taking a picture. But they actually hoisted him up in the air and then took off. So he actually was hanging. And he describes it that, okay, joke over. He's sitting down with them all, and the other guy continues to beg and beg for Snickers. Like he could hear the whole conversation, he could see everything. Nothing seemed anything different. They got the picture and it was done. Until while he thought he was sitting with them, he heard one of them say, "You guys, I don't think he's joking." And then I guess they all looked over, including himself, which would have been his astral body, I guess, or energy
Mhm.
body. And indeed, seeing himself completely collapsed, blue, and non breathing, they had actually hung him. So the guys all realized, ran over and tried to start resuscitating him. But he said the minute he realized that he was out of his body, he said he then found himself in complete darkness. He went on to describe quite a hell-like experience in his words. Some monster after him, chasing him. He was terrified. There was nobody there. And all he could do was to pray. And basically, if I remember correctly, a hand came down and saved him. He described it as an angel. He came to, but because of that experience, and this was many years later, he had become extremely, extremely religious because of this experience. Now, my theory is when I've looked at some of these, not all of them, is that I'm wondering if, because I believe there's many different astral realms. And as I always say, people people, beings, whatever you want to call it, even not on this planet, if everything is energy, energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can be transferred from one place to another. Not everybody is thinking love and light, nor are they acting in love and light. That energy has to accumulate and go somewhere. And I believe it goes to lower astral realms. Now, my thought is with this gentleman, for example, that when he indeed stopped breathing, right, instead of ascending directly, as I call it, back home, he ended up almost getting stuck in one of those lower astral realms. And that was his experience, because it took me a long time. I'd been raised Roman Catholic. I had been forced to go to church and go to Roman Catholic school. And I just never, don't get me wrong, anybody listening, for me, my belief is in God. And I have a very good relationship with God and angels and what have you. But my thoughts also are, I was taught God is everywhere and God is our Father. And to me, I've never had to go to a special building to have to visit my Father. That's just me, not pushing my beliefs on others. Back to this story, though, I almost wonder if he got stuck in one of the lower astral realms because his heart didn't completely stop, nor did he probably stop breathing completely, clinically dead. And that's my thoughts on it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Sorry for such a long explanation, but I've sort of seen this because it's not common for people to have these experiences. Did you realize that within your own research, Douglas?
Well, I'm happy to address those points,
Perfect.
Laura. Um, in my research for my second book, Spiritual Revelations from Beyond the Veil, I would say about 5%, maybe 10, probably more like 5% of the total number of written accounts I read
Yeah.
did have dark elements.
Yeah.
And I'll describe a few momentarily.
Perfect.
But basically, the NDEers described three types of hell, and I would classify them as follows. First of all, hell is simply an absence of God or the light of God. And one of the NDEers described God as love, but used an acronym, L period, O period, V period, E period. L standing for light, O standing for oneness, V standing for vibrations, and E standing for energy.
I like that.
But the first type of hell is simply an absence of God
Oh, God. Okay.
or light.
I was going to
And
say
this is,
light, absence of light. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
it's a state of being completely alone,
Mm-hmm.
completely alone. So this fellow, this private, called out, God, please help me. And it sounds like God sent a holy angel to
Yeah.
pull him out of the abyss.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one type of hell that was described by the NDEers. Another type of hell is what I would call a transitional state. So you're neither here nor there. So you're no longer part of the earthly realm. Your soul or your consciousness has exited your physical body,
Right.
but you haven't gone down the tunnel of light. You haven't returned home. The NDEers often call heaven as their home. That's our true home.
That's
That's
what I always call it, home.
what one of the NDEers said, life is venturing forth to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Death is returning home to the heavenly realms. And in fact, if I can quote from Taoism, from the Tao Te Ching, um, they say something similar in Taoist scripture. Life is venturing forth, death is a returning home.
Mm-hmm.
Spirit is reality, and at its heart is truth. We believe that our earthly reality is the ultimate reality, but boy, are we wrong, according to the NDEers.
Mm-hmm.
There's a far greater reality called the ultimate reality that exists out there. But I digress. To
Mm-hmm.
return to your question,
Mm-hmm.
The second type of hell is what I would call a transitional state. So, for whatever reason, the soul or the consciousness doesn't go down the so-called tunnel of light
Mm-hmm.
or the valley to get to the threshold or the veil of the heavenly realms, dividing the earthly realm from the heavenly realms. They might be afraid. They might fear God's judgment. They cannot accept the beauty of God or even God's existence.
So
They
is
may
this
be
how we get earthbound spirits for many reasons why they choose not to cross over then?
exactly, Laura. They might be too attached
Mm-hmm.
to something that they've just left behind, to
Mm-hmm.
one of their pets. I can't leave my pet. Or
Money,
I can't
revenge, materialism, pets, family. Yep. Mm-hmm.
there's a multitude of reasons why they don't want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But they become what we call in the West disembodied spirits,
Yes.
or what the Chinese call hungry ghosts.
Yes.
They're just hanging around. They're neither here nor there. They're caught in between.
Or people that pass very quickly with the unexpectedly also. I've seen that as well. People stay earthbound too. Mm-hmm.
And they don't know
Just,
what happened to them. They don't
yeah.
realize they're
No
dead.
idea. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the second type of hell that I classified from the N to E accounts.
Mm-hmm.
The third and final type of hell is what I would call a sensory perception experience.
Okay.
So I'll just describe two of them very briefly. But one of the authors claimed that they found themselves in the abyss, a dark abyss,
Mm-hmm.
and there was wailing
Yeah.
and anguish and horrible sounds. And the soul was terrified. It
Mm-hmm.
experienced extreme fear and uncertainty about where they were. But that soul was umbrellaed in the light of God. It may have been their guardian angel,
Mm-hmm.
protecting them with an umbrella or shield of white light, golden white light. And what the guardian angel communicated telepathically to the soul was, do not step out from underneath the light I am showering you with, because if you do, you will never leave this place. The second example I can tell you and your listeners is where the soul once again found themselves in a lower level or abyss of existence,
Mm-hmm.
and they could faintly make out a wall. And on the wall, almost cemented into this wall, were the arms and legs and faces of lost souls. And their torsos were actually part of the wall, but their legs and arms and face you could see protruding out from the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, these souls were in deep strife.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why the soul or the consciousness was allowed to see these scenes, I do not know.
I
But
do.
what the ears, I'm happy to learn the answer from you. But what the end ears say is that things always happen for a higher purpose. There are no coincidences in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Over to you, Laura.
So again, I don't know everything, but I also believe and you can almost tell, and again, it's not our role, anybody's role to judge, but when we meet different people, especially working in the spiritual field, never mind connecting with the other side, sometimes you're told if it has a purpose, but you meet newer souls that come to earth, and we've all heard this. I mean, I just saw a picture of a pet recently. I said, oh my goodness, that's an old soul, and you could tell from looking in the eyes, right? So going back to you answering what you were talking about is, I believe that we have every kind of experience that we may wish to desire to learn from in any which way. It could be anything, right? As a soul, as an everlasting soul energy. So I think that there could be something built into the fact that in this incarnation, for example, I wish to experience what being trapped in the lower astral realms are like, and what I need to learn or discover, what I need to do basically to escape, because no soul, I believe, is ever truly ever trapped. So, where I'm going with this is, and we've had this conversation on the thing at the foot of the bed, my co host David and I, with the audience, is, and I'd love to hear what you found in your research, but from his own experience as an adult, as an NDEer, and I still remember little bits and pieces even as a toddler, but studying them for as many years as I have, talking to people who have had them, most people do not suffer at the time of leaving Earth as a soul. The soul leaves the body so it doesn't experience the trauma or any pain or anything disagreeable. Not always, but most times. Once in a while, you will hear a soul that will experiencing everything right to the time of leaving Earth. And the belief that my friend and I were talking about, David and I, and other people have chimed in, is unless you've built that into your experience, unless you want to know what maybe it feels like, maybe there's something to learn from experiencing, say, that physical pain, if you had cancer or something before you leave, most souls seem to leave right at the time before something's like, say, a car accident. They don't, the body will still experience the physical pain and what have you, but the soul will not, unless there's something to be learned. So where I'm going with that is, I believe that there may be souls that have chosen to have that experience, because I also truly believe that no soul is ever trapped forever and ever and ever. If there is no hell, right, and there is no punishment, that I believe that that may be something that they might have chosen to learn from. And I could be completely wrong. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, that's consistent with my research,
Okay.
Laura, that no soul is ever trapped for an
Being ever.
eternity.
I'm going to give a
What,
hint for people. I'm going to give a hint right
yes.
now. And a good friend of mine told me this, and I believe it profusely. Augie Nost, we used to be on the same network years ago. He has Broadcast Team Alpha on YouTube. His co host is Nori Love. And he's a fascinating man. He's had incredible experiences, including, he even said on one of my shows, he believed he visited himself as a small child in Norway from the future. He's had and he'll back this stuff up. Really intelligent, incredible man. But he said, no soul is ever trapped. And he said, heaven forbid you would ever find yourself in that situation. He said, but if you are, try to remember to call on somebody you love on the other side. He said, most people have a parent, especially a mother, could be anybody else, to call on them. You can do it telepathically as a soul and ask them to come and get you. Because it's true, like you said. Sorry, I wanted to throw that in there, but I believe that. And that may help somebody someday. I don't know, but he shared it and I like to share it. But I'd love to hear the rest of your thoughts. Sorry, I wanted to throw that in there.
Okay. Laura, in my research for my second book, I did come across two NDE observations which corroborates just what you said.
Okay.
That in the case of a catastrophic motor vehicle accident,
Mm-hmm.
the soul or the consciousness is extracted from the physical body moments before the impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And another NDEer said, in terms of an aircraft disaster,
Uh-huh.
moments before hitting the ground,
Yeah.
the soul will be extracted from the body
Mm-hmm.
because God doesn't want us to feel that extreme pain and
Mm-hmm.
anguish. God is a God of love and compassion.
Mhm.
So, what is the proper frame of mind to have at the moment of our physical death? I think that's a very important question for all of us. And I think this is where we can borrow heavily from Hindu scripture, from India. The sages and seers and the sadhus and the great teachers have known for 5,000 years. And it's corroborated in the NDE accounts and in my latest book that at the moment of death, as best we can, we should be focusing exclusively on God, on the light, on our source, because we have the divine spark within us. We are all children of God. The sacred scriptures say that, the NDErs say that. Our souls are bequeathed to us by God, and we will return to God. So focus completely on God and the light and the love. Secondly, you must remember to detach from everything you've held dear in the earthly realm. Because when your soul leaves your body, you leave behind your physical body
Mhm.
and you leave behind your earthly identity. That chapter in your book of evolution is finished now. So your earthly identity dissipates. As Hadi said, everything is an interconnected oneness, and
Let
she
me
is
find that. I'll
correct.
highlight it for you. I
She is,
want to say, oh, go
she
ahead.
is
Sorry.
absolutely correct. Our consciousness becomes part of the universal consciousness.
Okay.
And thirdly, when we leave our bodies, we must not hold any grudges against any living being. So that is what Hinduism teaches us. Focus exclusively on God as our creator. Detach from everything
But do
except
you think people will be
giving
forgotten?
others.
Yeah, sorry,
And
but do
all,
you? Oh, go ahead.
yes,
Sorry. I thought I
no, go
had a
ahead.
pause. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
Laura.
Finish what you were saying. I'm sorry.
It's quite all right.
All I was going to say is I think that's a great piece of wisdom to share with people, but depending on the manner and how we leave, sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes we're in a great, maybe it's because I follow true crime too. Most people don't always leave peacefully. And then, like, I've also worked in palliative care and I'm very
Mm.
passionate about it. It sounds terrible to be passionate about palliative care when someone's losing their life, but to best be able to support them and their families. I really, really am. And how I try to explain things, and again, I want to make it really clear, I don't have all the answers, but when we look at things, like people will ask, and it's a great question to ask, well, what happens to people like Jeffrey Dahmer or Charles Manson? Like if there is really no punishment and so on and so forth, right? But where I'm going with this is we're looking at things with human eyes right now. We're an everlasting soul, I believe, just having a human experience in this lifetime. But once our body leaves our soul leaves our body. Um, and it's just my belief. I don't think we have to remember how. I think we know how because we can teach ourselves as human beings how to astral travel. We always have the silver cord, right? Is the way it's worded, that we're always attached to our bodies. But you will hear of people that say have died in the operating room. They are not conscious when it happens, and they are utterly shocked and surprised to see themselves above their body, right? And they haven't completely detached the cord, obviously, because if they had, they would be on the other side and not return, as from what I've read from the research. But what I'm saying is it's almost like it's second nature. It's almost like going to sleep. So I truly believe that once we do detach, I think it's a great point to bring up. And if somebody could remember it in their time of passing, it would be great. But most of us don't plan for death if you knew it was coming. I think it's a great point. But I think we know as a soul because we return to how I like to word it, who we really are, right? We're looking at it with human eyes, knowing what time is, knowing
Mhm.
all these things that doesn't exist on the other side. And to even try to put words to what that love is, to really know the meaning of when we say we are all connected. You don't there is no words to describe it. There is no separateness. You are all truly, you know what I mean? One of my friends described it as a love soup. You start with many, many different ingredients, right, for a soup. But when you throw them all in and the soup's all cooked down and it's all pureed, you can't separate those things. It becomes one. I think we innately know as souls. So I don't know. What do you think about that? And I could be completely wrong, but I think we know these things, and we can't always plan for our deaths too, right? So I'd love to
Oh,
know
yeah.
where your thoughts are with that.
You've covered a lot there, Laura. I don't know
Have
whether
I
I can
blown your
remember
mind?
all of the
Sorry.
questions. My circuit's overloading here.
Okay, so
Um,
let's start with it. I don't think we have to remember this. I think it's a great point. Say for somebody that's palliative and they
you're
know
quite
the
right.
end.
You're quite right that in many instances of death, it's sudden or
Very.
completely unexpected, and we have no control over that. But for those of us who have the privilege of knowing that we're going to die, if I can
Mhm.
put it that way,
I
we can
agree. I
prepare.
agree with you.
Yeah, we can prepare that way. We
Absolutely.
can conduct a preemptive life review, if I can call it that, and
Mhm.
we can sort of mentally prepare for our departure from this realm using the wisdom of the Indian sages and seers. But I take your point that may be a luxury for some people and not available to
I don't
others.
think it could hurt, if that makes sense. But I think we know this because we've done it so many times before, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know all the answers because people are asking some great questions if you're open to it. Because, especially going back to your book and leaning on what you've learned, because um, some of the things that were listed talking points, what is the purpose and meaning of our earthly incarnation, kind of goes with this. And I understand why people ask this. Why do some people, for example, with cancer go through so much pain? What is the purpose of their earthly incarnation, to come here and then to have cancer and go through a horrible amount of pain and then leave?
I recall one end-year saying this, that we all endure trials and tribulations, challenges and suffering in our lives. That is for a higher purpose. That is what earthly life is all about. That is why we are sent here. And another end-year said this, whatever challenges we face in life, discern from those challenges and problems and afflictions the particular lessons we were sent to earth to learn.
Mhm.
Patience, perseverance, long suffering, whatever that may be. Everything is for a higher purpose. There are no coincidences in the universe or the cosmos. Not everything that happens to us is pleasant, of course. But when the unpleasantness occurs, including chronic illness and terminal illnesses, consider, according to the end here, discern what lessons we are to extract from that particular life experience through prayer to God and your guardian angels. I think that's the best way I can answer that.
I
And
have something to add too. Please feel free to continue. Sorry. Mhm.
if I may go back and pick up another point you mentioned, that they come in and out because I tend to forget and we move on to
Well,
other
never
things.
mind. I always ask difficult questions because that's where my brain's going in 20 million
All right,
directions.
the interconnectedness.
I love
One of
having
the
conversations.
NDErs, following Hadi's excellent point on interconnectedness,
Mhm.
one of the NDErs said this, when I left my body and entered the world of spirit, I left behind my earthly identity. I left behind a sense of me. In the world of spirit, I was everything, and everything was me.
Mm-hmm.
It was just one. As you say, you join the love soup, or the universal consciousness. Now, in the earthly realm, it's completely different. And as humans, we have no concept at all that everything is linked by energy and its vibrations.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, our earthly reality is one of dualism.
It
The
is.
perceiver is different from the perceived. The observer is different from what is being observed. You and I are observing each other from halfway around the world.
Mm-hmm.
We are separate people. We're sitting on separate chairs. Everything in the earthly realm is separate. We live in a realm of separation and separateness. But that's not true. That's an illusion of the earthly realm. According to subatomic quantum physics and particle theory, everything is linked. Everything is connected by energy and its vibrations, even though it's very difficult for us as humans to perceive it with our earthly sensory perception capabilities. But that is a delusion. And once we, according to the NDEers, I can't speak from personal experience, but this is what the NDEers told me, that once you enter the world of spirit, you can more readily perceive the interconnectedness of everything.
Yeah.
All animal life, human life, plants, trees, the phenomena of nature, the intangible physical realm, the inanimate objects, everything is connected and can be traced back to the source, to the
Mm-hmm.
creator, or to God. Isn't that wonderful that we all have that to look forward to? When we return to the world of spirit, it's instantaneously tapping into the universal data bank, into universal consciousness, into other people's memories. You will tap into everything that has ever gone before and everything that ever will be. It's all an eternal present, an
I
eternal
think
now.
we can do that now.
Of
I
course
think
we,
we can
but
do it now, like
yeah,
with Akashic Records, for example. And I realized I kept feeling really called to take these courses. And when I did, I went, holy cow, I've been doing this my whole life. I didn't have the title. And I always tell people, just because I practice in this field, I'm no better than anybody else. I believe every human being has the ability to do this, but for whatever reason, when we came, I also believe younger children and babies are much closer to where we came from than say where we are now at the age you and I are, for example. But I think we can all do it as very young children or babies, as can animals. So it's almost like riding a bike. We maybe been told it was part of our imagination. You're too old to be thinking there's imaginary friends or whatever it is. It's there. It's just buried deep beneath. I think we just got to do a little work, a little practice. And some of us do it all the time and we don't even realize that we do. I think we can connect to universal consciousness.
well, I agree with you, Laura.
Mhm,
You can do that through deep, penetrative meditation.
mhm,
All of us are energy and vibrations, but
mhm,
in our human bodies, we are heavy, dense, and slow,
mhm. Yeah.
and the vibrations are lower. This is according to the NDEers.
Mhm,
I can't speak from personal experience. But when you enter into the realm of spirit, according to the NDEers,
mhm,
your vibrations increase and you can tap into infused universal knowledge.
mhm,
And there is no such thing in the heavenly realms as a question without an answer. Everything is answered instantaneously, even before the thought question has been formulated.
mhm.
the world of spirit, according to the end of ears, we can all become time travelers
We
because
still can do it now.
souls transcend space and time. And some gifted people can do it now, as you say. I can't do it.
I
I
think you could do it. I'm going to share something. When I did my talk this
have
weekend, I
Mhm.
started it with this, and Spirit gave me this years ago. What you perceive becomes what you believe, and it becomes your reality. So, if not you, when I say you, I mean the global you, anybody out there says, I can't do this, or it's not possible. And the more we say it, the more we think it, the more it becomes our belief and it becomes our reality, because I believe as human beings, we are creators. If we are truly connected to source and God, right? We are all one. And spirit, I call it collectively spirit, also has given me the analogy, and it's quite simplistic. We all come from God. I'll say God instead of source. We'll say God. And if say God was Plato, big figure of Play-Doh, a big mountain of Play-Doh. And he took a piece of this Play-Doh and he made animals. And he took a piece of this and he made humans. And he took a piece and he made the planets and the universe and everything else. We're not separate because we all came from the same mountain of Play-Doh, right? I think God has given us the ability to create, and we create our realities, and we create, right? That's when you get into energy and vibration too. When I was talking about the radio, tuning into the radio station, just we've never been taught to believe it. We've never been taught this knowledge, if you will. And for those, again, not trying to sound elitist or egotistical, but for those such as yourself, myself, the people here that are open to listening and hearing this, that should we choose to start digging deeper, should we choose to start looking like you have with the incredible books you've written, it starts to become our reality and we can make it happen.
Oh, Laura, that sends shivers up my spine.
Doesn't it? Well, it's not
Yes.
mine, that's from Spirit.
Can I share something with you?
Absolutely.
I've had a personal experience of that.
Oh, please
Yes,
share if
but
you're comfortable.
before I share it with you and your audience,
Mhm.
I would like to describe the four states of Hindu consciousness.
Okay.
There are four states of Hindu consciousness. The first is our ordinary waking state. So you and I are engaging in the normal waking consciousness.
Hmm.
Then when we go to bed at night, we enter a deep sleep state.
Hmm.
And then towards morning, towards the time that we wake up, we enter into a dream state. But there is a fourth and higher state that the Hindus refer to as Turiya,
Interesting.
Turiya. In fact, I know some ladies whose names are Turiya, but Turiya is transcendental consciousness.
Yes, I've heard that. Yes.
When the consciousness, you're able to tap into the higher energies.
Hmm.
And that consciousness transcends all physical and material matter.
Hmm.
It transcends space and time because, according to the Hindus and the Indians, God is the absolute reality. God transcends, or the source transcends space and time. Everything is the eternal now.
Hmm.
And I practice meditation.
Hmm.
And I also appear on another program run by a yogini. She's a
Okay.
very gifted lady. And we often talk on her program about uh, deep meditation techniques. And on one occasion, I don't meditate as often as I should. I will start meditating on a more regular basis next year when I finish my latest podcasting season.
Okay.
But on one occasion, when I was engaging in deeper penetrative meditation,
Hmm.
I saw flashing or flickering lights, but I didn't have a full on vision. I could only see it peripherally.
Hmm.
And then suddenly a Buddha-like figure appeared to me,
Oh, I love
like
it.
an sadhu or mystic.
Hmm.
I seemed to be, it was like a silhouette, like we were separated by a screen or a veil. And that probably is maybe a lower level of the Turiya consciousness. So I agree with you that
I
that's
think
something
that was one of the ascended masters.
we all have to take lessons on how we can attain that, I think. Yeah.
I think that that's an incredible experience, and I thank you for sharing it because I literally was, and again, I don't know everything. I just go with what I feel, and I don't hear voices, but the higher self, if you will, the subconscious and connected to the other side, that it almost sounds, and you tell me if this resonates. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But this experience that you had was showing you that it's possible, but because you have free will, and I'm getting goosebumps, that's my sign that this is definitely coming from spirit. It's not cold in here.
Mhm.
Is that this being, if you will, was showing you that this is possible should you wish to connect deeper or know more. All you'd have to do is let them know, I wish to know more. I give you permission to work with me on a deeper level. Because I can tell you a lot of the knowledge that I have has come from working with the other side. Yes, they have to lower their vibration. Yes, I have to raise my vibration, and we try and meet in the middle. But part of teaching, because I teach others and mentor, is that I truly believe that what I collectively call spirit, so our guides, our angels, the ascended masters, and all beings of light, or another one with the Akashic records, we call them the masters, teachers, and loved ones, the collective, they will meet with you in meditation, or sometimes the hypnagogic state, as I call it, just when we're just about asleep, or when we wake up in the morning but we're not quite awake and we've hit the snooze button, especially is a
Mhm.
great time, if not in meditation. And they will hold classes with us. They will answer some of these questions for us. And we have the tools. I think it was you and I that talked about remote viewing, with the fact that we can
Mhm.
do that. And most human beings can do it. We may need some help. Some people are natural remote viewers. And the older I get, the more I study and the more knowledge I get, and from talking to incredible people by yourself, I start to realize that God did not send us here alone. It's almost like, if you will, to oversimplify, when a parent sends their child off to summer camp for 2 weeks, most loving parents do not send their child unprepared, nor does God when He sends us here. The only thing we come with is what I call spiritual amnesia, or it would kind of ruin the reason why we're here in the first place.
Mhm.
But when we open our minds and we dig a little deeper, He has sent us with so many tools and scriptures and
Mhm.
information. It's there. What's your thoughts on that? And
Well,
books like yourself,
absolutely,
books like
Laura. When you were talking just now, a few thoughts came to my mind, actually.
Mhm.
Um, I'll refer back to the Bhagavad Gita, or the Song of
Okay.
God, the one of the most profound pieces of Hindu scripture I've ever read. One of the um, verses in the Bhagavad Gita is, um, "Please teach me, God. I submit to you."
Mhm.
And this is what I did in my personal life. When I retired from full-time work at the beginning of 2018,
Mhm.
I made a conscious decision. I'm leaving behind the secular law that I've spent 35 years studying and
Mhm.
writing on. And I said, I want to acquire knowledge of divine law. I want to acquire wisdom and understanding. So I asked God, I said, I humbly beseech you, God,
Mhm.
please teach me your divine law, your wisdom, your knowledge, and understanding. My experience is all we have to do is ask, and it shall be given unto you.
Absolutely. Yes.
And my cup runneth over, Laura.
Yeah.
I've met such fantastic people since I started writing about 4 or 5 years ago. Yourself, Yogini, many other podcasters. Some you learn more from than others,
Hmm.
but it's almost like an exponential effect. You
Hmm.
know, doors begin opening up, the old ripple or domino effect, and it's never ending. And it's so exciting. But all we have to do is to have that interest or the curiosity.
Yes.
But we need divine help. We need
Hmm.
the help of God, the source, or our spirit guides,
Yeah.
or our guardian angels, or someone like yourself
Hmm.
who has deep spiritual knowledge
Hmm.
to guide us. And we're capable of doing anything. Our
Yes.
energy, as you say, cannot be destroyed.
Hmm.
It's infinite. It's
Yes.
eternal. When we leave our body, our energy expands into the universe and it taps into this universal knowledge. But while we're still here, we can still tap into it. It's difficult, but we need mentors or guides to help us, but it can be done. And
Hmm.
again, why wait? We've
I
been given
agree.
life on earth. We've been given human life, which according to the Jain religion in India is a great gift to be
It is.
born a human being. But
Hmm.
many of us just take it for granted. Oh, okay. And we often,
Because they don't remember. Like when I
yeah,
talk about this, like to come here, this is exactly almost word
mm,
for word something you said earlier, the way it's been shown to me too. There is a lineup of souls, I believe. And again, goosebumps, waiting to
mhm,
incarnate to earth. It's not the only place, but it's one of the main places where you come as a soul, that you come in with what I call spiritual amnesia. You don't remember what
mhm,
you've achieved and grown and
yeah,
evolved as with the soul. You come into these dense, heavy, fragile bodies, right? But you have the ability to grow and learn and evolve at an exponential pace here on earth, because it is hard. It is difficult. But sometimes we come in the role as the teacher, sometimes we come in the role as a
mhm,
student, and sometimes we take on both, right? So you are absolutely right. I agree 100%. And again, I don't know everything, but I'm very visual. So spirit will usually give me almost like a movie. And there are so many souls waiting to come here. It really is a gift. And most people don't. Some people think we're just here to go to work and that's it. And there's nothing left after this, right?
mhm. We're here to learn. You express the essence of the NDE messaging so beautifully and
Oh,
elegantly
thank
in
you.
what you've just said.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I do recall one NDEer saying that some of
We
us
did it.
incarnate in Earth to teach,
Mm-hmm.
others to learn, and others to do both. Um, I
I've
recall
met some
another.
souls. I've met some souls that they've come here. They had a really difficult life before, whether it was on Earth or it was anywhere other universe, planet, whatever they had evolved, they had spent the previous lifetime. So they've chosen this particular lifetime as either an easy life or a life just to come here. Some people come here just to discover what fun is as a soul. I bet people like that.
Oh, just to derive joy and to give joy in their lives? Yes,
Hmm.
that's one of our purposes identified by the NDEers,
Hmm.
to give joy to others. In fact, some of the NDEers were asked that question in the life review. Did you give joy to others? And did you yourself derive joy in your life? Because life is a journey,
Hmm.
and some of us endure more difficult journeys than others. But it
Yes.
is a journey or an adventure. And to a great extent, we fashion that journey ourselves through the exercise of our free will. But when you talked about spiritual amnesia and
Hmm.
how we enter our earthly incarnation, we all almost enter our earthly life as an infant with a clear slate,
Yes.
like a blank white sheet. and we are given the paint, and we can paint our own creation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But one of the NDEers said a fascinating thing about intuition. And I have a chapter in my latest book about the inner life and intuition.
Oh, let's
You
talk
may have
about.
experienced this in your life,
Mm-hmm.
Laura. I know I have, where you know something to be true. You just know it's a fact, but you can't ever remember reading it in a book or a report or a journal
Mm-hmm.
or hearing it on the radio or
Mm-hmm.
hearing it on the television or a podcast, but you just know it's true.
Down
And
to
the
the depths of
NDEer,
the core of your soul, you know it to be true.
yeah, and the NDEers put it this way: trust your instincts, trust your intuition, because that knowingness or certainty that your soul feels is from the infused universal knowledge that's out there and available to the soul when we leave the physical body. So when we are incarnated on earth, virtually all of that is wiped, but there might be a bit of a residue or remnant left over that we can somehow tap into. So I
Mhm.
thought that was a really interesting
You know
comment
what
that I
we
thought
call
I'd
it?
share with you.
I love that you brought that up. You know what we call that in the light worker or spiritual field. So many of the senses that we have that we don't realize we have. We once upon a time ago, I truly believe as humans communicated telepathically. I think we were very telekinetic. I think we can do many things that we've never been taught, but we call it the clairs. So when we can see spirit from the other side, clairvoyance, clear vision, clairaudience, clear hearing. I'm very clairaudient, but that type of knowing you so beautifully described, we call claircognizance. You know.
Claircognizance.
You know, clear knowing. You know it. You know it to the depths of your soul. Yes, I've had many moments like this. And the deeper I sort of grow within this field, the more seems to almost the key goes in the lock, it gets unlocked. And I have this knowledge. I don't know why I know it, but I know it.
Mhm.
And it's to the depths of the core of my soul. And I know that has come from, as I call it, home, if you will, or as you said, tapping into the universal consciousness. Mhm,
That's called claircognizance. I've actually heard of that term.
mhm.
And you spoke about telepathy
Yeah.
and how humanity perhaps once were telepathic.
Yes.
One of the NDE written observations that I recall was that in humanity's future, we will return to that state.
Yeah.
We will return to communication through telepathy.
I
Isn't
believe it.
that fascinating?
We can practice it. Augie again. I'm going to give him a. He has
Mhm.
a. You might actually enjoy this. Not that I would ever tell you what to do or anybody listening. He has the mastermind on Sundays and Mondays and Wednesdays, but Sundays is free.
Mhm.
Sunday afternoons. Sunday afternoon, I believe you just write the mastermind. Yep. If anybody that's interested, please message me and I'll give you the email exactly, or you can contact Augie. You can look up the mastermind, not the mastermind, sorry, Broadcast Team Alpha. But they get together people from all over the world. They connect through universal consciousness. If there's a storm coming, to be able to turn the storm. I've seen them connect with alien races. There were all kinds of things I've seen. Hang on, I started talking. I lost my train of thought. The more I talk here, it's going to come back. We were talking about, what were we talking about? There's a reason why. Oh, telepathy. I knew it would come back.
Telepathy.
One of the exercises, and I have done this, and I tell people, don't expect it to work immediately. But next time somebody is in line with a bunch of people or on queue, depending on where you live,
Mhm.
if you can, and you've got somebody standing behind you, where you're going to stare is right at the back, at the nape of the, and you're going to focus and think, turn around,
Mhm.
turn around, turn around. You're not going to say it. You're going to think it with words. The more you practice it, it works. People will turn around going, like, were you calling me or something? Like, people will hear it. I swear to you, they will. They will.
Can I share something with you,
Absolutely.
Laura? Um, my partner or my wife, her name is Chandra,
Okay.
and she's from Nepal. But like
Ooh.
myself, she's been in Australia for
Mhm,
some 40 years,
mhm.
and she's deeply spiritual and into shamanism.
I love it.
And Chandra and I often communicate telepathically.
I'm not shocked
It,
at all. The longer you
it's
live with
like
some.
it's. She keeps saying we're twins in the spirit world.
Mhm,
And actually, I had a medium tell me once that my wife and I have had multiple previous relationships in previous lifetimes,
mhm.
that in some lifetimes I was the wife and she
Yeah.
was the husband, but that we've connected once again in this life.
Mhm,
And it's amazing the number of instances of telepathic communication between us.
mhm.
And when this happens, we just hang on a minute. That's weird. So, yeah, it's what you said about being in line and focusing. I believe that between intimates, that can happen as well, because it
Automatically.
happens between Chandra and I all the time.
I think it's our natural state of being as human
Mm,
beings. It's how we communicate, I believe, on the other side. That's why when you
mm,
said there are no questions in heaven, because the answer's there before you think it.
mm,
Because we already know we're so interconnected. It's like you share a mind, right? And when we live, as same as with close friends, it happens lots on this show too. I have to be, and I don't want to make myself sound egotistical, but I have to be very careful. I learned this actually in university with the emotions that I put out because I can affect others as well as on the show. If I think of a question long enough, invariably my guest is going to start saying it. We start actually almost telepathically communicating,
mm,
and I think it's our natural state as human beings. Back in the day, I think also there are many more
mm.
people, especially prepubescent adolescent girls, can very much be very telekinetic with the hormones and breadth and depth of emotion, and don't even realize it. And I'm not sure why it is with prepubescent girls, but you can look up the research on that. We are powerful as human beings. We've just never been taught how incredibly powerful. I want to thank you for sharing that story about you and Chandra because I think that's so beautiful. I really, really do.
My pleasure, Laura. The NDEers consistently say that we as souls have infinite potential.
We do.
And in my second book, I had a chapter devoted to communication in the realm of spirit.
Mhm,
And when we speak of telepathic communication, you first think, well, it's just an exchange of statements or sentences or
mhm,
thoughts. But according to the NDEers, it goes far beyond that.
mhm,
It can be an exchange of memories, of life experiences, of thoughts, feelings, and emotions, of even of concepts that would take us months and months to master in our earthly bodies. But when we're in the world of spirit, these difficult concepts are instantaneously comprehensible to us.
absolutely.
So the communication in the realm of spirit goes far beyond the level of simply exchanging thoughts or ideas. And
Absolutely.
it's quite a deep, as one end ear said, it's like an exchange between two consciousnesses at the deepest level. Wow.
But you remember all the lives that you've had and all the knowledge and all the experiences. Plus, you have access to everybody else's. One thing I was going to add, I'm going to have you back on, Douglas, because there's so many questions.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm happy to come back on, Laura. No problems.
I
Talk
love
about anything
having
you want to talk about.
I love having these conversations with you, and everybody's adding so many comments. And I know that we've been seeing them, but you guys are just adding to the conversation. So thank you. But the one thing I'll add, because we are almost out of time, but the one thing I'm going to add that's going to go along with everything you've talked about is that there's been studies where, say, there's a group of monkeys on an isolated island, and all of a sudden they're using a certain item on the island or whatever as a new way of it as a tool to get food, for example. And there's observers there as scientists, right? They start traveling around the world. They've never seen it in other monkey populations. You can look this research up, anybody. I don't know what the name of it is. I've seen it before years ago. But all of a sudden, they start seeing other monkey populations start using the same type of tool that these monkeys on the isolated island were using. And they were wondering, how does this happen? And the deeper and the more that they've seen this, they've realized that even animals are accessing this universal consciousness to obtain the knowledge, as well as then that knowledge. We didn't even get into how they're looking at how it gets, this spiritual or energetic or soul knowledge is starting to be passed along through generations through the mother's mitochondrial DNA. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's fascinating. I can only add to that one or two observations. The NDEers did say consistently, almost unanimously, that animals have awareness or consciousness. It's just not
Absolutely.
confined to human beings, and that they have souls which reincarnate.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So for us to say, well, only humans can tap into the universal consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
that's a bit arrogant, I think, on our part.
Mm-hmm.
Energy and its vibrations extends to even plants and trees,
And
according to
rocks.
the NDEers,
And
and
rocks and
rocks.
sand and
Yes. And the indigenous populations throughout the world have known about this for millennia.
they have.
But we in the West are a bit slow, we're a bit thick. We don't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as we awaken spiritually
Mm-hmm.
and elevate and expand our consciousnesses, we will appreciate what indigenous populations have known for literally thousands of years.
I agree.
And this gets me back to, what is humanity's place in the cosmos? We tend to pat ourselves on the back and think, well, we're the greatest thing since sliced toast. But
Mm-hmm.
sadly, we're not. Because according to the NDEers,
Mm-hmm.
um, all sentient living beings have souls,
We did.
and no soul is greater than or less than any other soul.
Agreed.
The world of spirit is very egalitarian, very
Absolutely.
equal in nature. So that is very humbling. And humanity should be well aware of that, Laura, in my view, because we tend to be arrogant. We lack humility and we lack simplicity. We tend to think, well, in 2024, we've invented all these things and we have instantaneous communication. Aren't we great?
Mm-hmm.
But are we harnessing God's light and divine law and knowledge and energy? That's the real issue.
I agree.
And how we apply that knowledge is meaningless unless it's for a higher purpose. I digress. I apologize.
You don't have to apologize. I got to have you back on. You guys, you have to go out and check out Douglas's books. This is the third in the trilogy. Yeah, and I'm gonna have him back on because I got so many questions. I know you guys love when Douglas is on. People are saying, yes, great show, great guest. People are all saying this, and I know they love when you come on. So the third in his trilogy is called Near Death Experiences and Sacred Scripture, because I got a lot of questions, and I know people were adding great comments. Everybody's been saying great show, great guest. So I would love to have you back on. Where can people email you? You said that was the easiest, or they can go to Amazon to buy your
Oh,
books, right?
I'm happy to return to the Angel Rock lore
And
whenever you want to have me on, whatever you want to talk about in terms of a spiritual
no, we're going to
matter.
keep pulling in your
But
books because your research is phenomenal. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can be contacted by your viewers or listeners on my personal email address. It's all lowercase DC Hodgson, D as in Douglas, C as in Charles, Hodgson, Hodgson, 53, the year I was born, back in the last century, at gmail.com.
Wonderful. And I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you guys for all your great comments. Julie, I'm glad I saw you just got internet back, and I want to send my love and prayers and positive energy. I wish there was more I could do for people deeply affected by the hurricane. I hear and see your videos out there, and believe me, if there's other people out there that have a link to a reputable way that can help these people, because a lot of people need help there. I believe Nicole Thomas Ryan, who's usually here, had some great links. So please do your research if you're hoping to help others out there to make sure it gets to the people that need it. Also, if you ever want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on facebook.com/the Angel Rock. You want to book a psychic reading. I do mediumship. I also Akashic Records, energy healing. I do crystal Reiki, and I do teaching and mentoring. I do have a new course that's coming in the new year, teaching, and I told everybody about it this weekend, so at the conference. So now I need to get it out there. So I will look for it in the new year. Also, I have 2 groups on Facebook: Paranormal University for all things paranormal, the Angel Rocker Tribe for more things spiritual, like we talked tonight. Also, don't forget, David and I will be back next week with next Thursday. Sorry. This Thursday. I'm thinking about my guest next week. I'm going to mention already. This Thursday with the thing at the foot of the bed, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next week, I have Jess Curzon on. We're going to probably pre-record because she's over in the UK. I will do it Monday, which is Thanksgiving in Canada here, Thanksgiving Day, as Douglas knew, because he's a Canadian as well. But I will be working that day. So it will be a brand new show, but it may be a pre-record. So if you look for that, unless maybe she might stay up, I don't know, but I'm expecting to pre-record. You guys loved it. This is with the child that was autistic and nonverbal over in the UK that headhunted her to work with him. You guys loved it, and she's coming back to talk further about it in books in the future that are coming up very soon, I believe. Anyways, much love and light to all of you. Stay tuned for the next show that's coming up, and we'll see you Thursday and next Monday. Again, Douglas, thank you so much.
It's been my absolute pleasure, Laura.
Well,
Thank you so much for having me on.
We got so much more to talk about. Anyways, you guys, we love you all. We'll see you on Thursday and next Monday again, same time, same space.